Hey there, everyone. This is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And we want to welcome you to our podcast, Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, folks, we're back with a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, where Ray is going to be recommending a movie to me that I've never seen, maybe never even heard of, and see if I can get, see if you can get my opinion on said movie.
Yeah, we call it our fresh perspective on a retrospective review. So this is ideally kind of near the time where I would tell you the movie that I'm presenting to you, but I don't want to do that just yet. I want to keep it a secret.
Really?
Yeah,
That's not how this works.
it's true. It would make the podcast a lot harder if I kept it a secret for too long.
Can I even watch the movie?
Eventually, really soon. But I think you're gonna like this movie. It's from Argentina.
Oh boy,
We've not had an Argentine movie yet.
No, we have not. We have had subtitled films, but not one from Argentina.
No, this is subtitled. So I really hammered the Australian movies, but I'm gonna go south.
You're really a globe trotter when it comes to your movies.
You could say that.
Well, man, that spikes my interest. I'm gonna say so. I have to know, Ray. What do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
All right, Rob. Well, what I got, and the secret I'm about to break, is the name of the movie that I'm presenting to you is The Secret in Their Eyes. So,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I see what I did there.
You see what I did
secret.
there?
Now, here's what it's not, and this cannot be a secret. The movie is not called Secret in Their Eyes. That is a 2016 movie with Julia Roberts that I hear is awful. And that's American.
And we're not watching. Oh,
We're
see,
not
that's why you
watching
didn't pick
that.
that one.
Yeah.
That's why you went to Argentina.
We are watching The Secret, not Secret
That
in
little
Their
change?
The
You see that
Secret
little
in Their
change?
Eyes. It's big.
Totally different
Don't
movie.
waste 2
Totally
hours
different
watching
movies.
the movie without the. We need
No Julia
the.
Roberts. in
If you
this
can
movie.
understand what they're saying, then you're watching the wrong movie. You have to be reading the subtitles. But yeah, so this is The Secret in Their Eyes, 2009,
Okay.
Argentine movie. I love stats, so sometimes I like looking at I'm a numbers guy.
You are.
So you know that. But this movie made $34 million worldwide, which is the second highest grossing film in Argentine history, so it's pretty popular.
Okay.
It did win at the 82nd Academy Awards Best Foreign Film.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really great. It's a bit of a love story.
What's it about? You're telling me a lot of numbers and not a lot of details.
Numbers.
Not a lot of details. I need more details. Give me
So
some details.
this movie is about a retired legal counsel. So I will say the Argentine system of government seems a little weird.
They just throw tomatoes at you.
You gotta wrap your head around. It's hard to tell like what's a policeman, what's a lawyer, like where that line differs, I guess.
Sure.
So
Everybody's just Judge Dredd.
Kind of feels like that a little. Oh, honestly, it kind of feels like that a little bit. But yeah. So there's this retired legal counselor who's writing a novel, and so he's kind of writing the novel about some of the cold cases of his career, and so he's kind of going back and he's kind of dealing with these cases that kind of haunt him, as he's also dealing with the haunting inability to confess his love for his superior at the time.
It's kind of like Seven meets Love Story.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yes, in a way. It's a really good love story. That is The Secret in Their Eyes, and we'll see if you can tell their secret. But it stars Ricardo, Darin, and this is directed by Juan Jose Campanella. And him and Ricardo Darin, I guess, work a lot together. And they've done like 4 or 5 movies together as of this time. It also stars Soledad Villamil.
Okay.
She's the superior.
You are knocking those names.
I
right
think
out,
so.
Man. You are knocking that out.
Took 8 years of Spanish and don't know
I'm literally
anything.
jealous right now, sitting here listening to you say that.
Yeah, but it's really cool. They play both the characters in the current time, man, like 20 years ago, and they really do age like progression like really well in this. Like
Okay.
first I was like, how are they? Which one's the real one? Are they this young or this old? So and it's just makeup. It's not, there's no CGI or anything
That's
like
amazing.
that. But it's really cool. I think you're gonna really like this movie. I'm really
You
excited to
can
show
think
you
a
this.
lot, but we're going to have to find out for sure.
Yes,
And I
we
think
are.
that's what we do right now, right?
That'd
We're
be
doing this-
perfect.
we're going to do this now. So if you have not seen Secret in Their Eye, I'm kidding. The Secret.
Don't confuse the
The
audience.
Secret in Their
Yes.
Eyes.
Read the title of the video. We probably labeled this correctly.
I will make sure that happened when I post this. But this is that time when we go and watch the movie, and you should probably do the same if you have not. Pause the podcast, do that, and then come back and find out if Ray is correct and I enjoyed this movie.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
So you weren't kidding, Ray. Their legal system makes no sense to me. I'm
Yes.
real lost.
I've watched this movie multiple times. I'm still like, what is Ben's like equivalent to a job in
Right.
in America? I don't know.
I'm just watching the movie. I'm like, who is your daddy and what does he do?
I don't know
You
what
know,
anybody
what,
does.
what does any of you do?
Yeah,
So,
I don't know what anybody does, but I mean, I think by the end of the movie, you kind of get it
I
enough
get it
to like
enough,
how
yeah, I
it's
get it
structured,
enough.
but I don't know
I don't
the
think-
equivalency of what that would be.
It
like
doesn't
here.
matter, I guess. That's the real point.
Yeah.
It doesn't
They're,
matter.
They're all kind of detective-y-ish
Yeah.
type people.
Exactly.
So we've struggled to kind of understand that. I think, the movie's about struggles. Ben struggles to write a book.
Right? Struggles where to start.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing right now. Where
Yes.
do we start this conversation?
Well,
But we have a question.
We do.
And that's that's usually where we start these things.
It's as good a place as any.
I think so. And I have one, kind of watching this movie for the first time, watching these characters, figuring out their motives and stuff like that. And I came away really wondering who's the hero of this movie.
Interesting. We've
know?
talked about before in old podcasts who the monsters are.
We have Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes.
Check it out if you haven't.
So
but
this
that's
one,
true.
maybe we can talk about who the good guy is, or who the
Yeah,
the protagonist
let's-
or the hero of the story is.
Let's flip that on its head. Yeah, let's do that. I think that sounds good. Let's start from there. So obviously, as we said, this movie kind of centers on Ben.
Yeah,
He's the
I
think he's the main focal protagonist. We'll say that.
Definitely.
He's the eyes.
he's the narrator. Yeah, he's the old Ben and young Ben, and not old Ben from Star Wars, but we have old Ben in this movie and young Ben.
Exactly. These are the droids
the same
you're looking
Bens,
for.
yeah.
These are the droids you're looking for. I think he was a very interesting character to me, and I think, I always say with a movie like this, where you kind of have these split dual timelines, one really has to inform the other, or otherwise one of them kind of collapses. I feel like that with
Yeah,
the show Yellow Jackets,
Right.
which I think actually suffers from that. It's like I think
they
those
don't
are
do it well.
Those are two the ideal. It the book and Yellow Jackets the show. While I enjoy the show, I think there's some problems in that dual timeline kind of thing. I think this movie does that pretty well,
Yeah,
where it uses the difference, the young and the old to inform each other and drive that narrative forward.
yeah. I think when you first meet Ben, obviously you don't know anything about him, and you kind of I think that your initial like impressions of him, or at least for me, I remember when I first watched it, were like less than stellar, because like he's kind of joking back and forth with the security guard, and
Right.
that, and they're kind of insulting each other, and you don't know if he's if Ben's a little douchey or not.
Right, sure.
Kind of comes across like a bit of a dog,
Mhm.
romantically, and you're
Yep.
like, okay, am I gonna like this guy?
Right.
But then I think when you meet young Ben,
Right.
it does start to fill out old Ben, and you get him more. And that I think, to your point, that's when I think you're successfully managing these multiple timelines.
Yeah, definitely. Well, especially with Ben, like you said, with that flirtatious element to it, and especially centering around Irene,
Yeah.
which is the love interest that he just cannot seem to just get over.
Can't pull the trigger
can't pull the
either.
trigger on it. Just can't get over the fear and just do it.
Yeah, he's in a perpetual state of like poop or get off the pot, and he's
Right.
I'm just gonna sit and be stuck in the middle.
Right, exactly. But when there was the office scene when they were young with Pablo, and like Pablo like nails the pickup line like as soon as he walks.
And Ben
she walks
is so
in the door.
jealous.
Ben's like, "How can you do that? I've been sitting here for 3 hours thinking of a line," and she walks in the door, and I can't say anything.
Yeah.
But then as an adult, he's like clearly, or not adult, more an old man. He's more confident.
Yeah.
In all of that, and he, so he can just kind of rattle that stuff.
I really love their relationship, or
Irene
lack
or
thereof.
Pablo.
No, Ben and Irene's.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ben and Irene's, like, that is, the secret of their eyes is there's multiple layers to that in this movie, but the big one is between Ben and Irene, how they are keeping a secret in their eyes, and they're really not even trying to, but they can't see it, I think, in each other's eyes, that they're like, Irene is like, please woo me and save me. And, and Ben is like, I want to, but I can't, and you're not really sure why. He just doesn't think he's good enough. But how did you like how that whole romance played out? Because it's one where like there are two characters who are the love story of the movie, and I don't think they ever kiss officially.
No, I don't think so, because it's very much like a Jack and Diane thing, or Sam and Diane.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And cheers. And so you spend the whole movie, obviously wondering if they are going to get together and if they're not. And there's so many scenes where it's like the miscommunication, where it's like, you feel like one of them's going to say something and then they don't, and the other one's supposed to say something and then they don't. And there's a lot of metaphor in that too, like with the doors, she like is constantly like,
I love this little device that the director uses
to close the doors when she thinks something's going to be private.
Right.
So, there's a couple scenes, especially in the young years, when you can tell that she wants Ben to finally tell her that he loves her.
Right.
And like there's one scene that sticks out in my mind when after he runs into Ricardo at the train station, who's still waiting to find the killer, and he wants to reopen the case. So he rushes in, is like, I want to talk to you about something. You can see it in her eyes, like she's so excited, like I want to. Yes, close the door. And then she goes to close the door, and Pablo walks in. He's like, oh, Ben told me to come in here.
Yeah.
And then Ben's like, yeah, I wanted all three of us to talk. And she's like, oh.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yes.
So you can tell that she was crushed.
Yeah. Ben was, he was emotionally moved by that meeting with Ricardo. Ricardo it's been a year, I think, since they closed the case, right?
Yeah.
And Ricardo's still dead on and like, I'm gonna find the killer of my wife. I'm not gonna let this move on. This has moved Ben to the point where he's gonna finally confess his love to Irene. No, he just wants to reopen the case. But Irene definitely wanted that. You know? There's a couple other times too where you see Irene staring at him, the secret in her eyes, and he's not catching it. It's so funny because they're detectives, and this whole movie's about how he can see in Gomez the killer, right? He can see in his eyes that he's the killer. There's that interrogation scene where Irene gets Gomez to confess.
She's a badass in this scene. She really just is a badass.
I'm like, this is legal?
Right, well, it is, yeah, I mean, that's fair enough, but she's just no fear.
No, she is just insulting him every which way from Sunday.
Yeah.
Because she saw when she walked in his eyes that he, like, was a perv, that he was somebody that does bad things to women.
Yeah.
They can see all this in other people, but they can't see in each other's eyes how they feel about each other. And to me, like, there's something about that I love. It's that flaw. Yeah. It's that human flaw where you can be so good at something and in the same ways be so bad at the same thing, kind of when you just flip the perspective a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah. And another thing that I thought was interesting is how they kind of toyed with the notion that Ben, old Ben, as he's writing the novel, is a bit of an unreliable narrator, especially maybe when it comes to their relationship.
Yeah.
Because, so we get that midpoint in the movie.
Well, even the start of the movie is the train scene, right?
Right.
It's that
but you don't know what it
jumbled
is at that
look
time.
at it, but it's the same scene.
Right. And then you get to that point where you actually have the train scene.
Yeah.
And then, she reads the first draft of the novel, and she's like, that's not how any of this happened.
Right.
Or did it? Did it? Yeah. Who's lying?
Yeah. I kind of take it that she's lying a hair, because she's like, well, because if this is the way it happened, you should have brought me with you. And she's kind of just saying, like, you idiot, you should have brought me with you.
Right.
But Ben's, Ben just didn't get it, or he just couldn't pull the trigger. And it's almost like this tragic love story, except maybe they do end up getting back together at the end. We don't really know. They kind of leave it up for interpretation, but they do.
I think they do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna glass.
Well, they
half
close
full
the
guy.
door. That's the thing.
Exactly.
It's
they
Godfather.
close
It's
the
a Godfather
door.
ending. They close the door so something private and important is going to happen, and that's what it is. Ben is finally he's got closure in every way he needs closure, and he's finally got the nerve to do something complicated and get Irene to be his gal.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's also part of the reason what gravitated him to do the case in the first place.
Yeah.
I think the case itself is part of it, but I think it's the case where he fell in love with her. That's what I'm getting from it. Is he fell in love with her on this case, so he wants to, that's why he wants to revisit it. And I think it's like he almost wants to be close to her again. Because there's nothing to solve. Like, that's kind of one of the interesting things about this movie is it's not about the mystery. Like, the mystery of the case kind of gets wrapped up relatively quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not
there's only
not
one person.
unsolved,
Yeah, there's only one person
not,
they ever suspect did it.
Yeah, it's not unsolved. Like, everything, to be fair, like, it almost, like, it comes really easy.
Yeah.
Like, them, like, solving it.
Yeah.
Like, almost, like, kind of really. Like, I mean, not that it doesn't happen in real life, you know what I'm saying, but and you can say it doesn't matter, and it doesn't really, because it's not really what the movie's about.
Right.
But it's like, still, if you're kind of watching this, if you go into it thinking you're going to find some kind of like taut mystery, like that's not what you're getting.
No,
this movie's not like that.
This is not a mystery. This movie's a thriller, maybe a revenge story. It's not a mystery.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then, but yeah, so the closure is that well, I mean, they get Gomez, but then they end up not getting Gomez because he gets out.
Right. Which is interesting. The political intrigue side of that is really interesting, because again, you kind of go into that, corruption element of a government in, a South American country and stuff like that. And especially at that time, when things were so unstable and all of that. So, I mean, that stuff is definitely interesting. And it's not that the crime isn't compelling.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you obviously the murder, just the circumstances around the murder is, extremely compelling. And then you meet Ricardo, who we mentioned earlier, the husband.
Yeah.
And that he's the connection. Like, if there's any connection to the case through the whole movie, it's Ricardo.
Right.
Who, as we kind of alluded to in the beginning with our question, is he the hero of this movie? Because he keeps popping up in a lot of interesting ways.
Yeah, he's he doesn't let the case go. In some ways, he because of the structure of their memory books, which is like, to me, it's kind of ingenious the way that the way he like organized their photo albums.
The see-through paper kind of thing with
and labeling who's in every picture. But I was like, oh,
that's what it is. Like, comes so easy, but it's so cool at the same time. You're like, well, this would make it easy.
Yeah, and it does take like a year to get Gomez, or like 6 months to get Gomez, because really Ricardo, remember, like, he calls like Gomez's house or his apartment or something. I think it's grandma's house or something.
Or like his mom.
Yeah,
or something.
And it gets Gomez
to
go to leave the city.
Yeah.
And so they lose track of where he is. And so, like, so Ricardo kind of finds Gomez. Ben discovers it, but Ricardo gave Ben the tools to start looking at Gomez.
Right.
But then Ricardo kind of messes it up and gets Gomez a chance to leave before they could go get him.
Yeah.
And then, he just devotes basically his life to making sure that Gomez goes to jail. I think it was, two scenes with Ricardo. They kind of put out there, like, his deal is not the death penalty. He does not feel like Gomez should die.
Right. Yeah.
He's anti-death penalty
because
he said he would rather him rot in jail forever, than to die, get a quick assassination or electric chair.
Right. Well, like an injection, he takes a nap and he goes to sleep. Yeah.
Right. Not fair. Not a good enough retribution.
He said, "Is he going to get beaten and raped like my wife?" Like, no. Okay. Well, then that's not justice. That's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Well, we got a great chase scene though.
That is probably my favorite scene in the movie. You know. But first of all, before we get to the great chase scene, let me then just talk about Pablo.
I guess we should talk about Pablo.
Pablo's just a hair.
He's a great side character. Fantastic side
Ben's
character.
best friend and sidekick.
Yeah.
They work together in the office. He's
drunk.
Big drunk.
Big drunk.
And he's kind of just an absolute screw up, but like, at the start, but the scene before the chase scene when
Yeah.
he's in the bar and he kind of tells him like how he's kind of cracked. I love
the scene, but it's still like such a stretch. I'm like, again, like kind of talking about how you solve the case. Like, I'm still just like, okay, like I get where you're coming from, man. But
Well, I mean, I don't think it was a stretch in that the guy was using soccer players' code names in the
Mhm.
letters. So he's like,
sure,
he's a
like,
he's a soccer
he,
fan.
like, goes to soccer fan.
He needed his Rain Man friend to know all these
Right.
soccer guy references, which is
Sure.
a bit of a stretch, but yeah. But but it's just kind of Pablo's arc. Like he's been a screw up the whole movie. He's a drunk who Ben has to constantly save.
Pay
Ben
his
has
bar
to,
tab.
pay his bar tab, like patch things up with his wife for him. He screws up when they go to look for Pablo in Chivacoy or Civicoy. Yeah.
Chivacoy.
He
Yeah,
messes
where his
that
mom's
up.
at his mom's house or whatever.
Yeah, he messes that up, and so this is like Pablo's redemption arc a little bit as he figures out go to this soccer game, and then the movie has this amazing drone shot.
Man.
Like it starts with a fly over the stadium, it then like catches
Well, it
the
wouldn't be a
soccer
drone
game.
because this was 2009, so it's got to be a helicopter shot.
Yeah, maybe.
You guys gonna do something?
Yeah,
I don't think they would
yeah.
have been drones.
Touche. It looks like it's the equivalent of what you would have a drone shot now. It's like gets that close and that tight on the in on the action, and then it kind of looks like it's a oneer, but you can tell I think as it
there's
goes
a
through the
couple
crowd,
times,
there's a cut and transition there. But and then it goes to Ben and Pablo are searching the stadium for Gomez. They know he's a soccer fan.
Yeah.
That's his passion, and Pablo knows men do not change their passion.
Right.
He's going to keep going to the soccer games no matter what.
Well, and I appreciate the fact that they at least said we've been how many soccer games in the last however long. Like I appreciated that.
It wasn't the
'cause
first
it was
one
the
they went
first one we
to.
go to, and there he is.
And we're in the right section.
I'm in the right section.
Yeah.
But that's a big stadium.
Yeah.
I think,
Absolutely. Ton of people in there.
Like,
But I love the way
a
I'm
needle
sorry.
in a haystack.
Yeah. I love the way they like get to it though and how it's framed up because it's like Pablo sees Gomez or he
Mhm.
thinks.
Yeah.
So they're like working through the crowd. He taps the guy on the shoulder. It's not him. Disappointment, bummed out. And as they walk back up and they're thinking about how bad of an idea this is, the camera kind of pulls away from them to where you frame up Gomez's face. And then you're like, Ben, he's right there.
He's right here.
And you're like, is Ben going to see him? Is Ben going to see him? And then, hell yeah, Ben sees him. And then,
Yeah, then it turns into a Jason Bourne chase sequence
Yeah.
through the
No,
soccer
that is a
stadium,
oneer.
which is
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, upstairs, downstairs, up levels, down levels,
Hiding
into the
in bathroom
bathrooms, going to the
stalls.
bathroom. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy stuff. Which then he like falls down. He tries to jump from one story down, and then ends up hurting his leg. Hobbles out
Yeah.
onto the soccer field.
He's running out of ideas.
and he
That's not
collapses.
gonna work.
He's done.
Yeah.
So they finally get him.
I tell you, for me, like genuine intensity in that scene that I think like really works for me because it's at about exactly an hour in. It's almost like the exact midpoint of the movie
Yeah.
where this chasing, and I'm like, I could go either way. They could be getting him here or not getting him here, and so like I think when you don't know if they're going to get him or not, so that adds some intensity to the scene. I think the use of the oneer is really good because it makes the scene a lot more kinetic than maybe just watching a guy run down the halls if you had a steady camera.
Sure.
Like, I don't know, that scene really works for me. Like, you see some things that are so high budget, so much CGI, and I don't get the same emotional investment as I was there when they were chasing Gomez.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Like it was definitely a top flight chase sequence, and it was good because it kind of, like I said, the case itself was super simple. So I feel like they had to have those flourishes to make that sense of, like you said, the thriller aspect of it pay off.
Yeah.
So you needed something like that. So and that also then leads into the interrogation scene, which, as we said earlier, is great with Irene and Ben.
Just calling
so
him
it's like,
every name.
right.
I mean, you're doing
Getting
your
him
job
to
as a cop
confess,
if you
right.
get the murderer to whip his out
Right.
and show it to you. Then you're
Yeah.
like, got him. We got him
Right,
right where
right.
we want him.
And they really showed it too. I was like, okay, man, this guy was not gonna let this lady talk to him about his lack of manhood.
No.
So
No, he was not. No, he didn't.
but he confessed, so there you go. And as we alluded to earlier, then you kind of get into the political aspect of it because there was like
Take your best
Romano,
guess.
like I don't know
Yeah,
what his
Romano.
job. Romano's his name, but I don't know
He-
what his position is.
He's the same job as Irene. He's just a different like precinct.
Oh, is that
So,
what it is?
yeah.
Okay, well then he's the one who ends up kind of bailing him out and mostly to get back at Ben because
Yeah.
Ben like screwed over him, like just trying to make an easy arrest. You're
Yeah.
beating a confession out of a wrong person.
Yeah, the original people that Romano had found 2 guys to take the blame for this murder, what this
Yeah.
movie's about. Not instead of Gomez, he just found 2 random dudes, beat the heck out of them to get him to confess, and then said, "All right, this one's wrapped up." And I think I do think it's kind of speaking to Argentine government in the mid '70s and stuff. But Ben's not going to have it. He publicly embarrasses Romano, and then obviously we end up getting to where Gomez is the actual one who did it. So I do think Romano has some kind of like, I'm going to get Romano off because I didn't want him to be convicted of this anyway.
Right.
But I think one thing I think is great about Romano is like he's only in like 2 scenes in the movie, maybe 3, and
Yeah.
I hate his guts. Like,
Yeah.
passionately hate his guts.
Yeah, no, it was effective. Well, and especially when you have him letting out a definite criminal. It's not like, did he do it? Did he not
Right.
do it?
And
No,
he doesn't
knew he'd do
care.
it. And he doesn't care because he wants him for his his assassination skills. He knows how to break into places and he knows
Right.
how to kill people. So
And rape
he
him, and that's
right.
helpful.
So he
No.
wants him to be a thing, or he wants him to be an assassin. So and then then you get into the elevator scene after that, like where they go to like confront him, Ben and Irene, and then when they get in the elevator, Gomez gets in and like pulls out the
That's
gun
great,
or whatever.
too.
Yeah,
That's
there's a
great.
lot of tension in that.
That's
moment.
great tension
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ben and Irene are trying to give Romano the business. He said it ain't happening, and then as they leave, dejected, a little scared because Romano's like, "There's nothing you can do. You're helpless here."
Yeah.
There Gomez walks in the elevator with him, whips out a gun, and
Right.
never looks at him except
No.
for when he leaves.
Yeah. Never looks at him exactly. But this whole this kind of political aspect of it really has a sad ending though, because we lose Pablo.
Yeah, we do.
And
Yeah,
like
we do.
yeah, and so one drunken night, his wife won't take him home right away, or no, he gets kicked out of the bar.
Yeah,
and Ben has
well,
to
he's-
take him
yeah.
back to takes him back to
Ben
his
has to
apartment
keep
on
him from getting arrested.
right on a night he's supposed to go meet Irene.
Yeah.
So he takes him back to his apartment, and he's like, "Well, I can't take I got to do something."
Yeah,
with
he's
you."
actually Irene finally forced Ben to take him on a date. Like he's like,
Take her
on a date. He's like, Irene spoke up. She knows Ben's never going to pull the trigger. This kind of came back to Romano being like, "You're never going to get her. You're not good enough for her."
Right.
Like just calling him out right in front of her, and she's like, "You are."
Right.
Like we need to let's discuss this. And he's
Right.
like, Irene's going to get engaged, and there's a lot of hurdles jump.
Well, yeah, she like at that point she's like begging him to object to her wedding. Like
Right.
basically, like, would you object? Come to object. What are your objections? You're
Yeah.
going to dinner. You're going to tell me all of your objections.
Right. Right. She's like, I'm going to do this for you, but they're finally going to get together. It seems
Yeah.
like, and
Mhm.
then Ben can't go because he's got to start taking care. He's got to take care of Pablo again really
Yeah.
quick, and then he leaves Pablo alone in his apartment to go get Pablo's wife to take him home. And I love Pablo's last couple scenes here because he's so drunk and like he's bumping into things. He's like, "There's too much stuff in this house. Every time I'm in this house, I'm bumping into things." I'm like,
Right.
Well, that's also because you're drunk.
Right.
But-
You can't walk straight, man. Walk in a straight line.
And then he's like, "Why don't you just call my wife on the phone?" And he's like, "Your phone's broke, and you just told me your phone's broke." He's like, "Well, don't call from my phone. Call from yours. I still have to call your phone." But,
Right.
But anyway, he gets his wife, and they come back, and Pablo's dead.
Yeah. Gunned down in Ben's apartment. Clearly a political assassination.
Yeah.
And you think it's Gomez.
Yeah.
And you still really don't know in the end.
Yeah.
Because Ben has to kind of like put the pieces together, and he clearly in his mind he lionizes Pablo into saying that he pretended that he was Ben.
Yeah.
The
Which is a really
assassinations-
moving scene.
It is, clearly it was a hit meant for Ben, whether it was Romano or Gomez or whatever. This team comes to the apartment, and Pablo like puts the picture down so that they don't know that it's Ben,
Right.
and that he's not Ben, and says that it's him, and then they gun him down.
Yeah. And that, I think Ben has the argument, like, even if that's not exactly how it's happened, like, he's pretty sure it wasn't Gomez because Gomez would have been able to say, Gomez knows
Gomez
that's Pablo.
would have known. Yeah.
Yeah, Gomez met Pablo in the interrogation scene. Like Pablo rushes in for a second, so
Yeah.
he would have known that's not Ben. And so, man, if you notice, like even old Ben, like that picture, he never has picked up. Like if you go back and watch the movie in his
Oh,
house,
really?
like that picture's always lays down.
Oh wow.
yeah. So
I did not notice that.
yeah, so he's never picked that picture up because again he thinks that was almost like Pablo's sacrifice.
Yeah.
And again, that's Pablo's redemption arc where he's like,
Yeah.
I know Ben takes care of me all the time. I'm gonna, I don't know if he thought he was gonna get shot in the face, but maybe he thought he was gonna get beat up pretty good.
Yeah.
But or if he did think he was gonna get shot in the face, but he literally takes the bullet for Ben.
Yeah.
He said, well, hey, it's one of the moments where I'm gonna stop being a screw up and see what happens. And
Yeah.
really good, really emotional scene. But again, that is what Ben thinks happened because they don't really know.
Right.
They never find out.
Is Ben a reliable narrator or not?
Well, let's talk about that theme of this movie because I think at the end of the day, and maybe we can debate this a hair in a second, but just for fun, because I kind of agree with it. But at the end of the day, this movie is a movie about like looking back at the past,
Definitely.
or memories,
Yeah.
or like how to move forward
Yep.
in your life. And I think there's a lot of great examples of like how they address that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of, I mean, obviously it's just the way that the movie is set up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an old man looking back at what he sees as simultaneously a low point and a high point of his life.
Right.
And how do you rectify those things in your mind? Do you, you put gloss over the bad stuff or the stuff that you would wish had been different, maybe like the train scene?
Yeah.
Whether that happened the way that it was supposed to, he thinks it happens or not. The stuff with Pablo, did that happen the way that he thought it happened in his mind? I think there's a lot to be said about that, especially when you get to an age when you're really taking stock of your life and the actions that you've taken.
Yeah, and I think they have a couple different characters who view life a little bit different. Obviously, Ben is in this phase of his life where he wants to look back and he kind of wants to fix it. He wants, it kind of says when he's talking with Irene at the end, like, I want an ending for this case. I want an ending for this book. I want an ending for my life. Like, what is the ending to my life? Like, I'm not doing anything anymore. I didn't finish this. I didn't get the girl that I loved. Like,
right.
What is the ending to my life? Like, he's really retrospective. Where earlier in the movie, Irene is like, she doesn't want to read the novel because she doesn't want to look back. She's
right.
like, like too many choices made to think about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to work tomorrow and I have to do the next case. And
yeah.
I can't look back at my life. And I think that's two like fair ways that people live their life, like fair ways to demonstrate how people live their lives. Either you just wake up every day and keep moving forward, or you're always trying to like learn from the past, I guess.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think, especially when this was a case that it's interesting because it's not a case that wasn't solved. I feel like a movie like this is typically around a case that they never solved.
Yeah.
But it's a case that they clearly solved, but they couldn't get the guy.
Right.
For political reasons, they couldn't get the guy. So, part of it is, making it up to himself for the low moment. But I think part of it is also, at least in Ben's mind, is making it up to Ricardo.
Well, I'll also say, I do think in Ben's mind, part of it is Pablo's murder too. That
sure,
is unsolved.
Definitely,
that is unsolved.
That's fair. Yeah.
So that I think he kind of it ties them together. But yeah, you're right. I think like he idolizes Ricardo because he loves that Ricardo is so in love with his wife where he can't feel that, or he's not letting himself kind of feel
right.
that type of love for someone else.
Well, definitely, and then that obviously when you're going back to what you're saying earlier about our conversation with him and Irene, Irene finally reads the novel and is like, oh, this didn't happen this way, and it's also that sucks. Like it has a terrible ending. Like you need another ending.
It's not believable.
It's not believable. You need another ending.
And it's like, what do you mean? That's how it happened.
Right. So he realizes he's got to find Ricardo
in
1999.
Yeah. 20 some odd years later.
Yeah. So he tracks, he and Irene kind of go through the sleuthing of finding out where Ricardo is now. Also finds out that Gomez had never changed his address from Chivicoy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, well, where is he now? So where's Gomez now? Because
right.
that's always that piece on the board is like, well, where is Gomez now?
Yeah, they never know. He just disappeared the night that Pablo died.
Right.
The night Pablo got killed.
So they just they assume he's dead, which again with that political kind of prisoner situation, your political turmoil, I should say, situation, you could assume is possible.
He assumed he's died, or maybe they assumed once he killed Pablo, he went on the run.
Right.
He went on the lam.
Sure. Absolutely. But anyway, they track down Ricardo at this kind of remote ranch where he lives.
Yeah.
And I think these scenes are really great because I think you're kind of seeing two guys who on the surface level, it's like Ben can't let it go, and Ricardo, at least from his words from his mouth, is he's moved on.
Right.
The best he can.
Some ways he couldn't. He's never found new love, but
right.
he's not looking back. He's just every day waking up, moving forward.
Right. And I think there's a lot of, Conan, kind of what you're talking about, taking stock of your life and, thinking about the past. There's a lot of great lines in this scene.
There are.
Really about that.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Ricardo kind of gets upset at Ben where it's just like, let it go. You just got to like.
I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
know?
Like for him, he doesn't feel like he wants to talk about it. But Ben is like really like forceful, like, really kind of trying to push this conversation. Ricardo is just like, forget it. Like, I love my favorite line though is like, he says, forget it. You'll have 1,000 pasts and no future.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of dissecting it in the past and like thinking that, you could have changed it if you had done something different or whatever. And if you keep doing that, you'll have 1,000 pasts and no future.
Right.
I mean, that is just an amazing line.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe the best line of the movie, in my opinion.
And, Ricardo's thinking about, could he have saved his wife?
Right.
Literally
Right.
saved her. Well, my favorite line, Robert, is, because again, I think this is another way to think about the past is Ricardo at one point talks again in the same conversation, says to Ben, like, memories are all we end up with. Pick the good ones.
Pick the good
ones. Like,
sure.
So don't dread on the mistakes. Just like remember the good things and move on. You know what I mean? Now, does Ricardo really mean this?
Did Ricardo move on? No, he didn't.
Well, here's the
Clearly
thing:
not.
as Ben leaves, eventually, and again, great scene, and it is one of those scenes too. I think where you watch it, if you watch the movie a second time, you get a lot more of the nuance
Sure.
of especially Ricardo, the actor that he's putting into some of those lines and stuff. But as Ben's leaving, he's like, Ricardo, because Ricardo basically he feels bad for Ben because he understands that Ben said Ben's never going to move on until he finds who killed Pablo.
Right.
Basically, he gets revenge for Pablo.
Yeah.
And so Ricardo is kind of put in this box because he likes Ben well enough when he's like, sit down, I'll confess, basically, like, I killed Gomez. I tracked him down. I saw him that he was stalking your place. When he left, I beat him over the head, took him to the railroad tracks, and shot him 4 times.
Yeah.
And so they kind of leave with this like mutual, like, all right, well, it is. And Ben's like, I guess it's closed. The case is closed. There's nothing that haunts me anymore. I should move on.
Yeah. But that's not quite the case because as Ben's driving away, he starts putting the pieces together. Like, wait a minute, he didn't kill Gomez. He doesn't believe in the death penalty. He's talking about 4 bullets. Like, no. So he turns around, comes back, sneaks onto the property, and finds out that Ricardo has kept Gomez captured. He didn't do that. He captured
him all right,
but he kept him alive in this ranch for the last 25 years or whatever.
A little homemade prison cell.
Yeah, and this little homemade prison cell. And man, this is a great scene for me because I think the punishment, the imprisonment, isn't the worst punishment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Ricardo or Gomez says to him, "Tell him at least to talk to me."
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, oh my God, this guy's been in here for 25 years and Ricardo has never said a word to him.
Just feeds him and leaves.
Like, that is crazy.
That is cool. Even if he was serving regular life in regular jail, you would get yard time. You would get like social time.
Yeah.
But he is trapped in this prison of one.
Yeah.
Just him.
Yeah.
And apparently, because it's like when Ben first walks in, like Ricardo is like holding his tray, Gomez is holding his tray of food and just drops it. Almost like he's never seen, I mean, I imagine he's never seen somebody in 25 years.
25 years, yeah. It's
and
just
then,
Ricardo.
As Ben gets close, he looks at Ben and he's like, I almost think like he doesn't know how to talk. He's like,
because I thought he might have cut out his tongue. I'm not gonna lie. Like there was a moment when I'm like, is this gonna be like people under the stairs where it's like
I take it as he hasn't talked in 25 years.
Yeah.
But you know what also I think is really haunting is he says that line to Ben like please let at least tell him to talk to me and then walks away. He never asks Ben to save him. Like he as soon as he realizes that's Ben, he's like, oh crap, he's not gonna save me. I put a hit on him.
Yep.
So I'm like, man, that's what hopelessness. He's like, you're not going to save me. I'm not getting out of here.
I'm going back.
At least tell him to talk to me. And I'm going to bed. Man, that's haunting.
You said life.
Yeah.
Like that when Ricardo says that to Ben, you said life. I'm like, damn.
And Ben's like, yeah, I did.
You're right.
So he turns and walks away.
I did say that.
Yeah.
And he leaves.
Well, that's, I guess, unless you have anything else you kind of want to say about memories, because I guess it does recontextualize some of the things Ricardo was saying.
Well, exactly.
Speaking of unreliable,
going back to the question, you mean
unreliable narrators, protagonists, yeah. But I was going to say real quick before. I think one thing that I think kind of frame Ricardo is, is this movie about memories? Yes, 100%. like, is this movie a thriller? Yes, I think like that's the genre it falls into, but it's a revenge story, right? It's not a mystery.
Right.
It's a revenge story.
Closet revenge story.
And I think like when you look at Ricardo, I guess I would ask you, and this isn't our question, but I can ask a question, but is
question and a question. We're in
a question within a question.
Inceptioning questions.
Yes. Is revenge? Think about how what Ricardo's life must be now and how he lives. But so is revenge a dish best served cold, or a dish you shouldn't sample at all? Is Ricardo doing? Is Ricardo
Ricardo's
healthy
clearly
right now?
paid a price.
Yeah,
he has, and you can tell it in his physical form. He's in obviously
going bald is not. You don't get that from holding a prisoner,
not what I
Rob. That's
meant.
natural.
That
That's
is
hereditary.
Not what it happens. It's natural. Just the way God made you.
Yeah.
No, like it's no. But you can kind of just tell. I mean, granted, they're playing him older as 25 years old. It is what it is. But I do feel like you can kind of see the years on his face maybe a little bit more than some of the other one, aged actors for a specific reason, because they do kind of want to tell you that this takes a toll, but it was a toll that Ricardo was willing to pay.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the point of it, is because not only did he to be fair, he kind of paid this price for everyone.
Right.
Because they knew Gomez was never going to go down because of the political element of it. So Ricardo's like, screw it, I'll do it this way, and I'm just going to pay the price of life, essentially, to be this man's prisoner. And or warden.
Guard,
Warden.
That's and kind of what Ben likes about Ricardo is that he is so committed to this passion and this love for his wife.
Yeah.
That scene we kind of mentioned earlier, he's been sitting at train stations every day after work for a year.
Yeah.
When we kind of meet him again, like after the case has been closed, because he's so sure that Gomez is coming into town for some reason or another. So he's going to every bus station he can.
Yeah.
He's like
train stations.
Train stations.
Because Gomez does take the bus. That's why he never found him.
One of the first questions Ben asked Gomez is like, "How'd you get into town?" He's like, "The bus."
The bus. God, I knew it.
I'm gonna not tell Ricardo that one. But yeah. So then Ricardo's like, "Yeah, I've done this for a year, sitting at bus stations, living at my house, train stations." Living in my house and just feeding you for 25 years, I can do that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's worn him. He's never moved on in that he's never found new love. He can't bring people into the house when he's got a prisoner in the backyard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has to live this life of seclusion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's taken a toll.
And that, I think, brings us to the question of who is the hero of this movie, because Ben, yes, captured Gomez initially.
Yeah.
But he kind of lost him at the same time. Now, granted, it wasn't his fault. It was politics. But who really got him in the end? Ricardo. And he got him in an act, honestly, of protecting Ben.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is Ben received a phone call from Ricardo to let him know that Gomez was even out, because he saw him.
Right. He saw him on TV.
On TV and then on the news. And so he's like, oh man, and then he figured out he was out because he didn't know Gomez had gotten out anyway.
No.
And
nobody told him.
Nobody told him. So, so he warns him then, and then after Pablo, or I guess, no, I guess just after that, Ricardo, and they realize he's not going to jail. He tells Ricardo he's not going down. It's not going to happen. He, stakes out because he knows that Gomez is going to show up, and sure enough, he does. And who knows how long that took, because they didn't really say time-wise.
Because, again, we didn't know if he was telling the truth 100%, how that all happened.
Right. And so he picks him up, and then he holds him for 25 years. I mean, God, you know what? If I have to put my flag in the dirt here, I think I'm going to put it on the side of Ricardo, because, Ben has a great arc, and he, obviously his story is great, getting his love and all of that. But, man, Ricardo really just is a mensch. He's a real mensch.
Yeah, like you said, Ricardo's last name is Morales, which means morals in Spanish. So it's kind of interesting about that little twist there. Is he being morally correct, or is he is serving revenge? Like, Gomez is guilty as sin,
right?
But the legal system let him out. But that's not how it works. Good guy, bad guy shouldn't be just let out. But even if they essentially are pardoned or whatever. I think Ben is a great lead character. I think he's a great
Well, yeah.
protagonist.
Well, in the
But
end,
is he a
Rose work.
hero?
Right.
No, he does his job. He does his job well. He does his job passionately. He does everything right. But he's not the hero of this movie. Heck, Ricardo is. I don't care if it's morally gray what he's doing.
Go.
I love it.
I agree 100%. But, again, Ben gets the girl, which I think is really the point. He gets the girl at the end.
Yeah.
We fill it. He's got that little card that's like "I fear," like the writing assignment
Yeah.
things, and then he like changes it to love because all it needed was one letter. And then he realizes I love Irene, and he goes and he says, "I'm going to steal you from your husband because you're totally married with 2 kids."
Yeah.
And this gets real weird, real
But
fast.
they've got to be in their 20s now, so the divorce isn't going to hurt the kids at this point. So that's what she said. Hey, it's going to be complicated.
It'll be complicated.
Our kids will hate you.
Right. That is the line, last line of the movie. It'll be complicated. So,
And then she closes the
and then
door,
she
Godfather
finally
style,
closes the door
with just them 2 in it.
exactly.
And that's the thing there.
Yeah. So maybe it's time to close the door on this.
Oh, that great transition. We're good at this. So we do those kind of transitions.
Right.
So, all right, Rob. Well, that means if it is that time, then it's my turn to ask you
the big question.
the big question. I'm gushing over this movie. I love it every time I watch. I love it more and more. I think it's one of those movies where you can watch it multiple times and you see more things and it gets better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But what about you?
Oh,
Did you like this movie?
Okay.
And would you recommend it?
Okay. We're gonna do something a little different than what we normally do. I'm challenging you right now. Look at me. I
Oh.
want you to see if you can see the secret in my eyes about how I felt about this movie.
I can see, but I'm not going to say.
You're-
Because that's what Ben would do. That's what Ben would do.
That is the cop out. You need to tell. No, okay, fine. I will tell everybody. Yes, I loved this movie. I would absolutely recommend this movie.
I knew it.
It is a, like you said. I think the thriller elements of it work. I would not. Sure, you can call it a thriller if you want, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think obviously the heart of the relationship of the two, right, I'll call them the leads,
Yeah.
Irene and Ben, are, it's very compelling. Obviously, this unrequited love, situation. Will they, won't they?
Yeah.
If done well, works well, and especially when you're talking about over decades, which is you are
Right.
here. I was rooting for them to get together. They finally did, so I think that it was an earned ending in that regard. And Ricardo is the dark horse hero of this movie because for never knowing Ben before this horrendous event that happened to him, he became oddly loyal to him in a way. To protect him, but also sure you can make the argument to protect his wife, but also revenge for his wife, revenge for himself. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he was thinking of Ben too.
I will. Yeah, I love that thought.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of great elements to this movie. I think.
How did you like the ending? Was it too twisty, or you bought into it?
Yeah, no, I think I bought into it again. Like I think it fit the characters. When he first I shot him. I'm like, really? Like,
that's kind of womp womp,
right? I'm like, okay. I mean, you got your revenge, I suppose. But then, when he was, still alive in the cell, I'm like,
that's revenge.
Damn, that's revenge. Now we're talking, man. And he proved that the quick death wasn't better than
Gomez
the
has
slow
suffered.
death. So I think that made a really great,
and it's tax free on the people of Argentina.
Exactly. They saved them some bucks. They saved them some money in that. So yeah, no, absolutely loved this movie.
All right, good. Well, I love this movie too, Rob.
Absolutely. But what else have you been watching lately that you may have loved?
I don't know if I loved it, but I saw some stuff that I thought was pretty cool. One, I watched a documentary on Prime called Golden Era, which is the making of GoldenEye, the video game.
What?
Yes.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, it's a blast to the past there. Yeah. Just kind of documents really like the studio that made GoldenEye Rare's and how they just kind of, got this license and luckily got this license and all the turmoil that went into making a game that was basically a classic and
pretty much reinvented the I would say first person shooter
for consoles for
sure.
For sure.
Well, and then they followed up with Perfect Dark, which was maybe even better in my opinion.
I think I think there was some fun stuff. I know some people think it was too much stuff, but I mean, I know for us, just when you have 4 guys sitting around a TV screen, kind of just trying to kill each other, it was
and
cool.
TVs were so much smaller then.
They were very little. Yeah, those 4 boxes on a TV were not the same, not as great. But But you know what else I watched? We Live in Time
Oh, with Florence Pugh.
with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield.
Yep. Yep.
I do think they were both great.
Uh-huh.
It's an A24 like
Yeah.
weep fest. Like I think they cry in every scene. I think that was a mandate of the movie.
You must cry in every scene, but did you cry in every scene?
I cried in a couple.
Wow.
Scenes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's told completely unlinearly.
Oh,
So where
sure.
sometimes I think it's like it's not too hard to tell where they are, but they do want you to think about it a little bit. There are some times where they purposely are trying to like make you wonder: was this before they met, or after they met, or before
Right.
whatever?
Like he was stalking her before he knew her, and then he found,
Kind
is
of.
that, oh, no,
No.
okay.
But yeah, so and it kind of talks about legacy and family and like the importance of either leaving a legacy or living with a family or being family orientated, or can you do both? And so kind of talks to some kind of cool stuff. Not it was enjoyable. I give it a recommendation.
Okay.
And I also watched Saturday Night.
I watched that too.
Did you?
I did.
What'd you think?
It was good. I think I was really when I watched the trailer, the trailer first came out, I watched the trailer and I thought to myself, man, this movie looks better than I thought it ever could look.
Yeah,
It just I was so pumped to see it. And then I watched it, and I definitely don't think it lived up to the trailer expectations.
Yeah, I don't know if it could have.
Right. But I think there were certain things that it did live up to. Like it was a very kinetic movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like being like 90 minutes before the first episode, like it just didn't stop.
You could break a sweat just watching the movie.
Yeah, and I think some of the casting was really good.
Mm-hmm.
There was at least one that I thought was god awful. And maybe I don't know.
Andy Kaufman is
yes,
horrible.
okay, you agree with me. Okay, I was going to see if you're okay. Yeah, the guy who played Andy Kaufman was horrible. No offense to you, sir, wherever you are out there. I don't know your name, but man, maybe that's just because I just see Jim Carrey now as Andy Kaufman. But man, I don't.
Well, it's like he didn't really try to play Andy Kaufman. He just tried to play that like.
It's like Latka,
Locky.
but it was like
Latka.
Latka, but like I don't know. But it even seemed like a parody of somebody like pretending to be Latka. I don't know. It was just not good. But there were, like I said, there were some performances that were I thought just out of the park. One small one was the guy that played Billy Crystal.
Yeah, every now and then you could really hear some Billy Crystal in there.
Yeah, and even
But
like
it's
his
a really
mannerisms,
small role, 'cause-
it was. But
I thought Gabriel LaBelle, who played Lorne Michaels, I thought he was really good.
yeah,
in
he
this.
was good. He was probably. I mean, he
I've
was the
never
best
really
part of the movie.
seen him in
but
anything.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I have either.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
he was cool.
But so I think for me, my biggest issue with Saturday Night is I don't know if it really got to be anything more than just this is just the 90 minutes before the first
if it
episode.
really
I don't know if it said anything
yeah.
beyond that. I think they were trying to say maybe something with like, oh, you always have to just believe in your vision and just fight for your vision and all of that, because that was more or less kind of what they were trying to drill into Lorne Michaels the whole time.
Pull out of him, yeah.
Right. Like, well, what is the show? What is the show?
You'll know when you see it.
Right. I don't know that.
Yeah.
That like I think that was an interesting device, I guess, but like by the end, I don't know like if I really bought into like that being the crux of the movie.
Yeah. It's hard to sell like that he didn't know, or
Right.
that like he wanted to wait for other people to find out on their. Yeah, it's kind of a tough sell of like of a character arc.
Yeah, but the guy that played Chevy was great.
Yeah, I know him from like that horrible Batman Fox prequel show.
Oh.
He played the Riddler. I think his name's Corey Michael Smith.
He was great in this. I didn't watch.
He
The
was.
Batman
He
thing,
was.
but
He
he
was
was really
Chevy.
good in this.
Gotham. That's what the show was called.
Yeah, the guy that played John Belushi was good.
Yeah.
I thought he was good. And I just and I think everybody else was they were fine.
Fine.
You know what I mean? Like it's definitely not something I regretted watching.
No, I agree. What else have you been watching?
Well, the one thing I did watch recently that I'm super excited to talk about is The Substance with Demi Moore.
Oh yes.
That she is
How was
nominated.
that?
That she's nominated for an Oscar. She knocked it out of the park. Oh my God,
Really?
she was so good in The Substance. I highly recommend the movie. I thought Margaret Qualley is like her young counterpart. And she's good. I'm not trying to detract from her in the slightest, but this is Demi's movie,
Sure.
and she earned every second of it. There's like moments of just sheer grotesque.
I've heard it's
That's
like
just-
really grotesque.
Oh
some
my
parts.
god, yeah, and she just sells it. She totally owns it. She owns her age. She owns the situation. I mean, she just takes control of this movie, and she does not let go.
Cool.
And it's a great premise, and it really feels interesting because it feels very fake, but it's supposed to.
Sure.
Like the world feels fake, but it's supposed to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of the
Yeah.
point. So I could see somebody like trying to be nitpicky. It's like, well, this just doesn't feel like a real world. It's like, well, it's because it's not supposed to be. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the point.
Sometimes the real world doesn't feel
yeah.
like the real world anymore.
Right. And Dennis Quaid is in it
Okay.
for a bit. He's got I don't want to call it a bit part. He's in it a few times in the movie,
Yeah.
but like he really knocks it out of the park too. He just has a completely different kind of character though, and he's great. The other thing that I watched that I did enjoy was Cuckoo with Hunter Schafer.
Not familiar.
Hunter Schafer is in what is that show? Euphoria. Thank you. Sorry. Thinking
Never seen
myself.
an episode.
Yeah, I haven't either. My wife loves it, but
Yeah.
I've never watched Euphoria. I thought this was an interesting movie because I thought the premise was pretty interesting. It kind of takes place up in the German Alps, like up in
Okay.
in the mountains. It's kind of interesting because it's like her family. Her mother passed away, and she went and lived with her kind of estranged father and his new family, and they're building this like resort up
Yeah.
in the mountains, and Dan Stevens is in it as well. I don't know how familiar you are with Dan Stevens.
Very familiar.
So-
He's in Legion, one of my favorite shows.
well, there you go. So Dan Stevens is also in it, and he is good. And he plays kind of like the boss, I guess, of this kind of project.
Yeah.
But you can, like, when they get up there, she ends up being attacked by this strange woman, and it kind of just sends it off into this very odd direction.
Like a cuckoo direction.
But definitely, exactly. It's a very cuckoo direction. And, she's got a sister who's mute, and she's kind of having some difficulty with, and I think that's really what it's about, is kind of like, finding your family in a sense, or like, making the best of your familial situation,
Sure.
if you will. So it is a horror movie though, but it's not it's not a slasher horror movie or anything like that. But it's pretty cool. Like I said, I think they did some interesting stuff. Kind of got out there on the limb a little bit, and I always applaud movies that kind of try to swing big.
All right, Rob. Well, I guess we've come to the end of our conversation with A Secret in Our Eyes, but we do not want the audience to keep a secret how much they liked this episode. And there's lots of ways they can show us how they did that. They can like the episode. You guys can subscribe to the episode. You can leave us a 5-star review. If you do, we will read it live on air someday. And you guys can also email us at carrayrob@gmail.com or connect with us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. We would love for you to shout from the rooftops how much you love this episode in any comment section that may be on whatever platform you are streaming this episode on. Let us know what you thought of The Secret in Their Eyes. Maybe recommend a movie that Ray and I should check out, whether
would
new,
love that.
old, whatever. We always do our recommendations at the end of the episode. We'd love to hear yours. We're always looking for something great to watch. We will be back next week
Yes, we will.
with a new episode, of Hello Movies, My Old Friend.
Ooh, I can't wait.
And we are tackling the 1991, if I'm thinking correctly, drama Awakenings.
Yes, with Robin Williams.
Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. It was a favorite of ours as kids, and we have not seen it since, so we're super excited to dive back in and
Sure
see
are.
if that holds up. We love Robin Williams so much, I can't imagine it not, but we're going to find out, and you are not going to want to miss that. So don't miss that. But
Please.
until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone. We let you know what we're doing next week on Hello Movies, My Old Friend, but I'm going to go ahead and let you know what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks on our next episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, because it is going to be back to my episode, and I am going to be recommending to Ray the 1950 film noir classic In a Lonely Place, starring Humphrey Bogart, directed by Nicholas Ray. It is a I'll say lesser known Bogart film. Definitely not one that people might even, consider, name off in a top 5, top 10, but it is a fantastic performance, and I think an interesting way to introduce Ray to this film giant. So you are not going to want to miss it. Check out the movie, and we will see you then.